So for those of you that I haven't met, and pretty much all of you, we met at the Festival of Work last week, so you would have spoken to myself or a member of my team. I'm Elaine Gosden, and I'm the CEO of Blue Canoe Consulting. We're an insights-based business, so talking about insights discovery is something that we love doing. We love sharing the model with teams and leaders around the globe. And we also do a lot of work in the sphere of motivation and leadership development. And today's session, although we're talking a bit about insights, does have a kind of leadership twist because it's all about elevating team engagement. So we're going to look at ways in which insights can help you do that through the lens of leadership. So hopefully that sounds okay. And we're here together until 11:15, and I promise not to overrun because I'm can be many things, and flexibility is one of my strengths, but I'm usually ruthless on timings. So it'd be lovely to spend the next few minutes with you, the next 40 minutes or so with you. So I'd love to start just by asking the question, who's done any work with insights before? So either give me a physical wave or give me an emoji if you've used insights discovery in your business or in your career before. Not many waves, not many emojis. So let's assume you're all novices to insights then. So that's lovely. That's really cool. So you're gonna see a bit about the model today, which is really cool. So let me tell you exactly what we're going to be doing in the next 40 minutes or so. So a quick welcome from me this morning. Then we're going to be looking at, okay, so what is insights? A brief exploration of the model itself. Then we're going to look at how insights and leadership work together, because the leadership model is really helpful because insights is really simple on the face of it because it's a 4-quadrant, 4-color model, but it's actually got a lot of depth and a lot of complexity when you look beyond the surface. So we're going to scratch the surface a little bit more with some of the leadership stuff. And then I'm going to be talking towards the end about the benefits that insights can bring to teams and leaders, because obviously we think there's loads. It'd be really interesting to hear your views as well, based on what you hear from me today about how you think insights could help your businesses. And obviously, I want to give you some top tips in terms of how you can use some of this knowledge after today, because there's loads of really easy and simple and immediately practical application when you use a tool like Insights Discovery in the workplace. Okay, so does that sound all right? Yeah, this is why I like to see your faces, because I like to ask questions and it's nice to get the feedback. Okay, so Insights Discovery, for those of you that haven't met it before, is a 4-quadrant model. It's based on color, which I really like because I'm qualified in a few of other tools that are out there as well. But those ones can be trickier to remember because they're often letter-based, or they've got a bit more I guess it's stuff that's harder to remember, whereas color, the use of color makes insights really sticky learning. So people typically will remember their lead color preference, and they will also remember their order of preferences. So let me tell you a bit about them. We have fiery red. And I'm working it clockwise. It's a clockwise model. And I'll tell you in a moment a bit more about what red energy brings. Sunshine yellow, earth green, and cool blue. And what it's worth saying to all of you is that when we introduce a model like Insights Discovery to an organization, it's really natural, and we sort of expect that some people might begin to self-stereotype. So some people might go, oh, well, I'm a yellow, and I understand that about myself. And that's sort of okay because at least they're interacting with the material, but that self-stereotyping can become really, really dangerous because, as the slide says here, we've all got a connection to all 4 energies. Some of them you'll have a really strong connection to, and others of them you'll have a much smaller connection to, but you still have the ability to use it or to call it up at any point. So what's important is it's the combination of these energies that interact with each other that creates a unique and wonderful human being, which might be you. I'm also keen to say, because I think it's an important distinction, that Insights Discovery isn't really a personality model, it's a preference model. So we're measuring workplace preferences, and that's usually because we ask people to do the evaluators that they receive to complete their profiles in the workplace. So we're measuring workplace preferences. And what I think that means, and what that means to me, is A, how my behavior is likely to show up at work, but B, it's almost about, if I'm faced with my job, which has a list of tasks and responsibilities that I am there to do, my preferences will guide me in terms of the things that I see as my priorities and the things that I like to do first. So you'll learn a little bit about me in this session because I'm going to share parts of my profile with you. And my preference is to always do the people-based tasks first. So I love running webinars like this because I get to meet people like you. And I like to make all my phone calls and do all my people-based tasks before I get into my more detailed or technical-based tasks. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's not my personality that's driving that. It's my workplace preferences. And we need to understand that because preferences can cause tension in teams and in workplaces, but preferences can also cause great synergy in teams and workplaces, which is why we love the tool. So not only is it sticky, but it's measuring something helpful. I don't think it's helpful necessarily to measure personality in the workplace. I appreciate that's a debate we could probably have for many hours. So I want to show you a little bit about the model itself and put some meat on the bones about these four corners. So fiery red, sunshine yellow, earth green, and cool blue. Now, I'm not going to read these words out to you because you can see them there for yourselves, but I am going to ask you some questions. So I'd like you just to take a moment to digest the 20 words that are on the screen. And just to notice where your connection lies or where your strongest connections lie. So it might be that there's one particular corner that's calling you, that you think, oh yeah, probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 of the words in that corner might describe you, the person that you know to be you. Or it may be that you're thinking, well, actually, there's a few words in each quadrant that might describe you. So I just want you to notice that. And sometimes what we also notice when we ask people to have a look for the first time at the model is that there might be one quadrant that you sort of think, oh, that really doesn't sound like me. There's one that usually repels us, one that makes us think, ah, I could take or leave that one. That might be my least preferred of the 4. Okay. So, I mean, I'm wondering if I could ask you to, yeah, why don't we do this? It's an interactive session. Why don't you pop in the chat for me at the moment, like which quadrants or quadrants, notice I've used the S at the end, the ones that are calling you the most. So if you can, pop them in the chat, pop them in order. And let's see what we might have in the room. So what initial preferences based on very little information might we be looking at? Everyone starts furiously typing. So Diana's seeing a lot of blue in herself. Thank you. Green and blue. Emily, a bit of everything. Yeah, that's really, really common. Mix of them all. Green, yellow, blue. Eliza, Holly, yellow, green, blue, red in that order. Absolutely. Stephanie, green and red. That's lovely. For Amy, it would be green and yellow. Shayna, a mix of everything. Green and red for Sonali. Red. Red from the person who's with Emily. And green, blue, yellow, red. So isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely that straight away we've only been on this call for 10 minutes and already we're sharing with each other how we might show up and we're learning. We don't know each other. We're a room full of effective strangers, but we're learning things about each other. So you can immediately see that with very little time spent, teams can start to become really open about how they show up. And there might be some surprises there. Like if these are your work colleagues or if these were your work colleagues, you could go, oh, crikey, I never realized that that individual saw themselves that way because we all have a different way of viewing the world. And it's usually our own. We see the world through our own lenses. So all I've shown you so far are 20 words about a 4-color model. What we know about behavior and we know about preference is it's really lovely to be in control of it when we're having a good day. But what we also know about the workplace is that not all days are good days and not all parts of every day are good days. So there are some days that simply aren't as good. And that's okay. I think there's an acknowledgement of that. But interestingly, when we're not having a good day, our behavior is likely to change. And our colleagues are likely to notice that behavior change before we do. So before we become aware of it, our colleagues are likely to spot it. So I'm just going to flip this coin over and show you what might happen to each of the color preferences on a bad day. So perhaps when we're feeling a little bit stressed, we're a bit tired, maybe quite overwhelmed. There's a lot of talk about burnout in the workplace at the moment. And it's really interesting that the clues are already there. The clues are there long before we get to burnout. So I'm going to flip the coin over and I'm going to ask you to notice if your attraction to the colors that you initially said remains the same or if it changes at all. So can you spot these downsides, these potential weaknesses in yourself already? And you might want to pop a comment in the chat if you feel comfortable, or if it's changed, you might want to tell me what's changed. So maybe your red might have dropped or your green might come up. Again, it's just 20 words on a very simple slide within 15 minutes. So I'd love to see some of your commentary in the chats because it makes it come to life. It makes it real. Yeah, so Ludovine, switch to the right-hand side from the left-hand side. And there will be a reason for that. And if we had more time, I can share that with you. So maybe ask me that at the end, like, why is that? If we have time, what else? My red would go down. Yeah, sometimes the red goes up. I know if I'm feeling particularly grumpy and I'm feeling particularly comfortable, so when I'm with my family, I feel more comfortable than when I'm at work, my red energy might increase because I can be more myself. And that's a big admission, but that's what I notice about my own behavior. For Amy, yeah, still green, but the blue might come up a bit more. So there's some similarities, also some differences when we're not having such a bad time. And again, wouldn't it be helpful in the workplace if we knew some of this stuff about our colleagues? So if we were, if we could sense that someone was having a bad day, we could make them an offer of something that might be able to help them. And the offer could be simply, would it be helpful if we had a cup of tea and just went for a little stroll around the block? Or would it be helpful if we just drop work for a moment and let's just talk about what's going on with you right now? For some people, those strategies will really work depending on color preference. Other people, those strategies won't work and they'll just want to be left alone. But wouldn't it be nice to know that before those stressful situations occur? Let me just check some of the other comments. So probably still green, but some red and yellow might bubble up as well. Yeah. And Polly, I think I'd be the same as before, more or less. Yeah. And sometimes we do see that change. And sometimes people are remarkably consistent with their behavior when they're having a good day versus when they're having a bad day. So this is all really, really good to know. And behavior happens all the time. So we are behaving all the time. You're even non-verbally giving me clues, because I can see all the faces of those of you with your cameras on. You're giving me clues about how you are and your preferences, just based on how you're sitting and what's in your background and the things that I can see about you. Those non-verbal signals. I wouldn't be making any judgments about you. I'd be noticing. Isn't that interesting? So our behavior is out there. Like Carl Jung, whose psychological preference work is the basis of insights discovery, he said that we leak the truth. So no matter how good we are or how good we think we are at masking our own behaviors and our own preferences, actually we put our real selves into the world all the time. And here's a simple example. So let's imagine that we were at a conference center or something. Maybe we were back at Excel like we were last week, and we need to get in a lift and we need to change floors. So there are some people who might lead with fiery red energy who are just going to simply get in straight away and press that button. It's a very simple transaction for fiery red energy. Those of you with a little bit more sunshine yellow energy might still do that. However, you're going to be like, oh, let's hold the door like someone else wants to get in. Come on, guys, we can all get in here. Because for people with sunshine yellow energy, it's more about connecting with other humans. People who lead with earth green energy still want to connect with other humans. So that human connection is important at the south side of the wheel where yellow and green meet each other. But people with earth green energy aren't going to be as outwardly focused as those with sunshine yellow. So they might just quietly put their foot or their hand over the sensor on the lift to make sure that everyone gets in, but they're not going to make a big fuss about it. They're not going to make a verbal fuss about it. And then there's some people, and there might be some of you in the room here, who might be looking at all this commotion going on by the lift and thinking, do you know what, guys? I'm actually just going to take the stairs because I'm not that interested in having the party in the lift alongside the sunshine yellows and individuals. So it's true that we leak the truth. And as we learn more about the model, we learn more to spot the signals and clues that tell us what other people might be leading with. So it's a very simple example, but there it is. So in an insights discovery profile, which if you've never had one, we've got a little offer for you at the end of the webinar today. One of the very last pages is our color dynamics graphs page. And I wanted to share with you today my graphs page, A, because I know that I can, because it's my data, so I'm not breaching any confidentiality here. But B, because I think it's really worth looking at, because it gives you more than just the 4 colors. As I said to you earlier, we are all 4. So let's look first at my conscious persona, and then I'm going to ask you in a minute what you think my less conscious persona might be measuring or might be telling me. So my conscious persona, I admitted to it earlier, my sunshine yellow energy is very high. And I like that. It works for me. It enables me to lead my business in the way that I lead it. It's quite strongly backed up by my fiery red energy, which is also above the line. And the line there is a bit like an iceberg model. It's a bit like the sea level. So anything above the line is probably noticeable and observable by others. And certainly the people that I work with would know that about me. The stuff below the line, and especially the stuff really below the line, they might not be able to see that about me. So that's probably a bit more private and only known to me. Some individuals only have one color preference above the line. The rest is hidden below the surface. So we need to work harder potentially to find out more about what's going on for them at work. Some people, like myself, have 2 energies above the line and 2 energies below. And some people have 3 energies above the line. So they might be quite adaptable with their style. They might be able to connect with more people because they're showing us they've chosen strength in 3 out of 4 of our possible color preferences. Mathematically, though, and some people do ask this, there is no opportunity to get 4 preferences above the line just because of how the questions that generate this are created. It's a forced choice evaluator, so you can't get all 4 above the line. So that's my conscious persona. That's me and how I might appear to others. But there's 2 other charts on this page, my less conscious persona and my preference flow. So I'm going to put it out there, and it's a brave move because you might not have any idea at all, but I reckon you might. Any ideas about what my less conscious might be telling me? So if my conscious persona is telling me how I show up, what might my less conscious be measuring? And if you speak any Greek, the word persona is a really big clue because it's a Greek word. It's an ancient Greek word. So if you're feeling brave, pop it in the chat. I'll wait a few seconds for people to maybe have a guess, because you'll notice my less conscious and my conscious are slightly different. And that is regular, like most people's conscious versus less conscious graphs are different. Mine are in the same order, my color preferences, with the same number above and below the line, but the intensity of my energy has changed. So I'm just curious as to what your thoughts might be about what my less conscious persona might be in terms of how it might be different from my conscious. Any ideas? I'm keeping my eye on the chat. If there's no ideas, I'll just tell you. It's a tough one, especially if you've not used a model like this before. But essentially, that word persona, I gave you a clue a minute ago. Persona is an ancient Greek word. It literally translates as mask. So my persona is the mask that I hold up. So my conscious persona is the mask, the self I choose to share with my colleagues at work. Because usually at work, we're more self-aware than we are at home. So my conscious persona is the mask, the armor, if you will. If you've read any Brene Brown, you'll hear her talking about armoring. My armor that I choose to wear to work is my conscious self. My less conscious self, therefore, is what's going on under my armor or when my mask slips. So it's a glimpse of my more natural state, my more natural behaviors. And you'll notice, well, and let me just say a little bit more about that. So my less conscious self might be me before meeting, getting ready to go in, but then when I'm in there, my mask is on. So it might be if you met me in the bathroom before a meeting, you might see a glimpse of my less conscious self. Or if you met me, that space where you're busy at the beginning of a training session and you're getting the room ready and someone arrives early and you're like, oh, darn it, I still I'm not quite ready for them to be there yet. That's probably a less conscious version of me. That would be how I might show up. For each of you, you'll have your own examples of where you flick between conscious and less conscious in your working day. But it is more natural state. It's more of a shoes off state, or it's more of an in an emergency state. So if something happened that created an emergency for you, we'd probably see a more less conscious version of you than a conscious version of you. Okay. And then we have this lovely little graph in the middle, which is the preference flow. So here's an example for me. My less conscious self might be me when I first wake up, no behavioral filters. One of my family might ask me a question. Oh, that's surprising. I'm not ready for that question yet. They might get me my less conscious self. 20 minutes later, when I've had a chance to use the bathroom, get a drink, and I'm downstairs at the breakfast table, they might meet me more in my conscious self, where I'm ready for the interaction now. So what's happened is what's going on here in preference flow. So you'll notice, and you might have to squint a bit, but I have got 4 upward arrows in my preference flow, which means that my first thing in the morning self is ever so slightly less intense than my mask on, game face, armored up self. And I love the fact that I'm sharing this with a bunch of strangers. It feels quite nice. It feels almost like therapy. But you'll notice that I'm trying the hardest in my cool blue energy. So you would have seen from the slides earlier that the cool blue preference is the one all about data and research and information. And naturally, I have very little of that. Look, I only have 3% in my more natural state. When I'm in my conscious state, when I'm in my flow at work, actually I managed to push that up quite dramatically for me to 11%. So I'm multiplying it by quite a lot of itself, and which is why my blue energy preference flow bar is quite tall, because I'm pushing that up as much as I can. It's quite frustrating for me though, because I do push my blue energy up, but it's never, no matter how hard I try, I never seem to be able to get it above the line. Oops. But that's okay. I have people that can help me with my cool blue preference, that hold me to account on the data and the details that I need to do my job. And they know that about me, and I know where their strengths are. So we create an effective team together. So I'm going to stop talking for a sec, because I've just thrown a load of data at you. And I wonder what questions you have at this stage about the model itself, or about the graphs data that I've just shared with you. Please don't be shy. Either come off mute and just ask, or if you feel more comfortable popping it in the chat, pop it in the chat for me. With that awkward thing, isn't it? Like, how long do you leave? How long is an awkward silence? I was once taught to count 7 elephants. I think when I did my CIPD training a million years ago, I did my certificate in training practice, and they told me to count elephants to make sure that was a long enough silence. You know, 1 elephant, 2 elephant, etc., until 7. So here we go. Great questions popping in the chat. Eliza, can these preferences change with time? Absolutely. It's definitely a dynamic thing. But what I would say is preferences are remarkably consistent. So what we don't tend to see is people hopping from one side of the wheel to the other. So it would be, excuse me, it would be quite unusual for someone like me with that much high yellow energy to suddenly not have yellow energy in my profile. Yellow energy will probably always be present, but it may become less intense as my job role changes and as I mature into my life. I have changed wheel position 4 times in the 20 odd years that I've been working with insights. But I've always stayed within a section. So in this kind of yellowy, orangey space here, I've never really moved out of that space, but what is above and below the line and the intensity of that has changed. So yes, it does change. Oh, I've inhaled something a bit strange. And Emily, does this account for your own views or feedback from others? Another brilliant question. At this stage with Insights Discovery, this is my self-perception. This is my own profile. So the only data that's gone into creating this is data that I have put into it. However, what's brilliant about Insights and can come later as a step 2, 3, 4, 5 down the line, because we're still very much at an intro phase here, getting people their profiles and getting them familiar with what they are and how to use them. There is a 360 tool within the Insights model, so you can ask up to 12 people for feedback. It's not particularly expensive compared to the cost of an Insights profile on its own. But you can ask up to 12 people for their perception of you, and it plots out kind of these different charts for each person that gives you feedback, and that's fascinating. So yeah, at the moment, it's just self-perception, and what we find usually is what people get out is what they put in. So if they put in good quality information, they get a really good quality profile. If it's slightly skewed in some way, which is why Insights, by the way, is not licensed for recruitment purposes. You can't do this for candidates in a recruitment process, because you can absolutely game it and you can tell the evaluator anything you want to tell it. So if I was going for a data job in the tech sector, which by the way I'm never going to do, but if I did, I could totally answer all the Coolblue questions as preferences for myself, knowing what I'm looking at, to game the outcome. So it's not licensed for recruitment, only for development purposes. Amy's put a question in. So once you have completed this survey, how can you keep it alive within the workplace? That's a brilliant question, like such a good question. And I would say, I feel like it's part of my calling to answer that question. Like it maybe sound a bit too deep there, but there's no point, in my view, spending money, because there is a cost to Insights discovery, of course. There's no point spending money on Insights and then people put it in a drawer. They just had a lovely time at a team day or an away day, and then we leave it from there. There are multiple ways, and ways that don't cost any money, to keep Insights discovery alive. One of the things that we do as an Insights provider is we share with our clients and anyone that's attended a workshop with us some monthly infographics. So it's usually a deck of about 15 maybe pieces of brilliantly helpful, colourful information. So it might be, well, how do red and yellow energy show up under pressure? Or what does Coolblue energy need to do more or less of in meetings? So we take an accountability for keeping Insights discovery alive as an external partner with many clients who have brought Insights into their businesses. But there's also a responsibility for the managers and the teams themselves to keep it alive. And we can suggest multiple activities that you can run back in the workplace without a facilitator. So without a qualified facilitator, there's about 30 to 40 line manager exercises that we can share with you, that line managers can run at the beginning of their next team meeting, so that the profiles don't get forgotten about, they don't get put away, and we continue to maximize the investment. And I feel really passionately about that it absolutely shouldn't be a one-off, because it is expensive, and I desperately want people to feel like they're getting brilliant value from Insights discovery. So that's an amazing question. Thanks, Amy. And oh yeah, and I like your qualifier within the workplace, but what we do find, most people take their Insights profiles home and immediately show it to their loved ones. So and that again can provide some interesting dynamics to the conversation. So I'm going to move it on a little bit. It's 11 o'clock, so we've got 15 minutes left. I've still got loads more to show you, because I want to put a bit of a leadership spin on it, because many of you work with leaders, many of you probably are leaders in your space, and the color preferences can show up differently in leadership, and Insights have actually got a different leadership model. So again, to your point, Amy, if you want to keep Insights alive in your organization, I don't recommend an Insights program being a one-hit wonder. I recommend like a series of steps to keep it going. And later, like 6 months to a year after you introduce Insights, you might want to start looking at the leadership model. But it's worth saying, it's worth me reiterating, everyone has all 4 color energies within us. So this is not about boxing people. This is not about leaving a session saying, well, I'm blue and that's that. It's about understanding our mix and our preferences. And we often use these coloured bricks. You might have seen them at the Festival of Work last week. Insights were giving them away. We give these away because they're like soft Lego, and we encourage people to play with them. So to play with their mix. And to demonstrate it. So I have these on my desk all the time. And if I've got my fiery red hat on today, I might just alert my team to that by simply leaving my bricks on the edge of my desk. With that there, I'm having a focus day. I'm getting stuff done today, rather than if my yellow brick is at the top, well, I'm open for chats. I'm open for conversation. So there's many, many ways in which you can use the resources. We will have a preference for some more than others. I said earlier, some of you will have a strong preference for one, some for two, and some for three. Some of you might even have quite a flat graph with some interesting preference for all four. And each color brings its own strengths and challenges. So some of them get a more positive reputation than others, but all of them bring their own strengths and their own challenges. And we'd explore that more with you in an insights workshop. So what we know is that in order to be a great leader, one of the foundation stones is self-awareness, because a self-aware leader can do amazing things. They usually know their strengths and their areas to improve. They're usually super aware of their blind spots and biases, and we must talk about those in the workplace. They usually understand their sense of purpose, and they know what they stand for. They know their core beliefs and values, and they can recognize and appreciate the impact they have on others and the different strengths that others can bring. So being a self-aware leader is, I think, crucial. And it starts for me with insights discovery. So this is the reason why we run an insights-based business, is because it's a beautiful platform or springboard for us to get into the work that we really love doing, which is talking about self-aware leadership in organizations. So I want to just share with you how the different color preferences can show up for leaders. And then I'm going to show you the leadership model that Insights have used, because it's slightly different than red, yellow, green, and blue. So Cool Blue energy and leadership is more thoughtful and considered. Okay, it's more precise in stating what needs to be done. So it's quite a can be quite a reserved. It's not a lead from the front energy, but it's a lead from the data energy with Cool Blue. So again, maybe consider for yourself, how do you see your leadership style? Earth Green shows up in leadership as being more helpful and supportive. People with a lot of Earth Green energy are careful not to abuse or overuse their authority. So they're there for the good of the people, and they see it as their job to be a servant in leadership. So I'm here in the service of others. That might speak to some of you. Sunshine Yellow in leadership views their role to act as a catalyst, so to connect other people, to enable something bigger than themselves. Sunshine Yellow's key strength in leadership is being able to shift from what's happening right now to what's possible in the future. And Fiery Red's strength in leadership is all about getting stuff done. So leading from the front, demonstrating and bringing with them that sense of urgency and being really clear about priorities. So you can see that none of these styles of leadership can operate successfully alone. We need all four, but we need leaders to be self-aware about which ones they like using and which ones they don't like using, so that they can give themselves their own tonic, so they can self-prescribe their own medicine for leadership in terms of, how do I improve? Probably the answers might sit with my blind spots. So there's lots and lots of strengths that these energies bring, some of which may have popped out of my mouth a second ago. But Fiery Red, all about constructive challenge, bringing that direction, getting those actions started, and a real focus on results and KPIs coming from Fiery Red energy. In Sunshine Yellow energy, it's more about inspirational and motivational leadership. Like I said a minute ago, it's about envisioning a future that's what's possible, rather than looking at current state, what's happening right now. All about relationships and optimism in Sunshine Yellow energy. Earth Green, as I said a minute ago, in the service of others. So that ability to nurture, to coach, to kind of listen and mentor comes from Earth Green energy, demonstrating that I've got your back and therefore I'm a loyal and consistent leader for you with Earth Green energy. And Cool Blue, more about consistent standards, reliability and process. Making sure we understand our strategic principles and we're measuring our performance against those things, and honoring and applying the sense of collective wisdom. So Cool Blue energy isn't just about data and ticking lists. Cool Blue energy has a deep mystical power in many ways, to be able to see the future. And this sounds a bit crazy, doesn't it? But stick with me, because they're so close to the data that they can see the patterns and trends that are likely to emerge in the future. So it appears as though they come up with a great idea out of nowhere in Cool Blue leadership. Actually, it's because they've had their eye on the data the entire time. Okay, so I just wonder, what other strengths can you think of, and can you apply them to a color preference? So what, perhaps if you call to mind a really good leader that you currently have or that you've had in the past, what do they do for you that made you feel like they were a good leader. You could pop some of those traits in, and then I could help you with, well, that maybe have been coming from a red, yellow, green, or blue place. So feel free to pop some comments in the chat. What strengths in leadership have you experienced? Have you been on the receiving end of? Oh, that's one of my favorite questions. Here we go. So Sonali, supportive, understanding, empowering, encouraging. That sounds like a beautiful blend of an earth green and sunshine yellow leader to me. Emily, someone who provides recognition. Again, that's probably the ability to recognize comes from a self-awareness in earth green and sunshine yellow. Always had the time to talk to me, made the time even when busy. Yeah, so that putting you first is so important. Again, coming from earth green. Communication, Emily, again, probably coming from a bit of yellow energy, but communication is all around. It's the type of communication that you want and need that would give us the colorful link. Someone who's reliable, someone who establishes trust. Trust comes from lots of places. It doesn't just come from earth green energy, but trust can be built easiest and strongest with earth green. So yeah, isn't that fascinating? Because I think certainly when I'm in the training room working with groups of people, there's a real misnomer that fiery red equals good leadership, partly because you probably can't see it on the wall behind me, because in the red section the word there is director, so it has a directing style, and people kind of go, oh yeah, so red must equal good leadership. Almost everything you've told me sounds like it's not coming from a place of red energy. A lot of us don't want to be told what to do and how to do it. A lot of us want to feel empowered to do it our way. That's not always, red energy can do that, but yeah. Oh, and here we go. So Ludovine, empathy, vision, and strategy. So red energy is the home of vision and strategy. So someone that can paint that picture of the future in a really clear way probably has a significant amount of red energy. So there we go. We're establishing that a good leader for us is different. It's not always the same person. I've got my eye on the time because I don't want to miss anything. So Insights builds on their 4-color preference model into what they call the 4 manifestations of leadership. So this time we don't stick with red, yellow, green, and blue. They've layered around the edges where the colors blend with each other. And you can see there's actually 8 colors around the classic Insights with the 72 type wheel that's behind me. But let me start on the left-hand side where green and blue are strongest. Insights in their leadership model call this the centered leader. So this is someone who is grounded in the here and now, someone who has got all that authenticity and integrity that comes from a strong desire in both blue and green energy. Centered leadership on the greeny blue side of the wheel. If we travel to the other side, the opposite of a centered leader is a visionary leader. So this is someone who has more red and yellow energy. And this is, like I've said a couple of times, the person who can paint that picture of a compelling future for the team to get behind. Someone who's pioneering it, going, yeah, we can really make this change. We can make this happen, and gets people to follow them. Someone who can really inspire through brilliant communication. So a visionary leader, that combination between red and yellow energy. And then on the bottom, this is what I was hearing the most of in the chat a moment ago. The relationship leader has this powerful combination of yellow and green energy. So this is someone where relationships are the priority. Forget the targets. If we look after the people, the targets will look after themselves. So someone who can create community, cultivate all that wonderful collaboration, and get the individuals to perform at the height of their own performance. That everything else will take care of itself if we look after the people, right? A relationship leader. And then the results leader at the top. So in results leadership, where blue and green meet each other, this person has got their eye on the prize. They are interested in, do you know what? We've got to get this done. And they generate that commitment because they're so good at initiating ideas, at delivering well, and encouraging their team to complete tasks. So a different focus. And one of these, as I've been saying it, one of these styles, you go, yeah, I want to be led by that. And there might be one that you're like, oh, not so much. That doesn't really speak to me. And again, that will be giving you some clues about your own preferences and about the types of leaders that you've enjoyed working with in the past. Okay. So it's a real flash over the model, but it gives you an idea of how leadership can show up differently, because we don't think it's as simple as red, yellow, green, and blue when we're looking through the lens of leadership. And there is another profile that Insights can generate that is based off of the same data that you don't have to fill out another questionnaire, but we call it the transformational leadership profile, which helps you understand where you pop out in those 4 quadrants. So just put a tiny bit more meat on the bones before we finish. That centered leader has a strong preference for sensation. So being grounded in the here and now, the evidence that we have, okay, that blue and green, what's happening, right? What can I hear, taste, see, touch, and smell? Using my 5 senses to be in the moment with and for my people, a sensation or sensing based leader. The opposite, when I was talking about the red and yellow combination in visionary leadership, this is a more intuitive thinker. So this person is less focused on the here and now, more focused on where are we going, what could happen here, those future possibilities. An intuitive leader here. At the bottom, relationship leadership, this is more about evaluating. So more about engaging with those feelings and how they make us feel, so that we can evaluate those, perhaps a bit more heart center in the leadership down here, gut feel judgments. And at the top, a more thinking based leader. So less heart, more head based decisions, and more head based leadership. That logical process and logical analysis at the top in that beautiful purple reforming sector. So the superpower of purple is rewriting process and plans to get more from them, to improve, to reform the way in which we work together. So really quickly, because we're running out of time, I'm hoping just from what I'm saying that you're getting a sense of some of the business benefits to bringing Insights into an organization and using it with teams and leaders. One of the biggest benefits that it brings is that people begin to look at other people and evaluate, who am I working with and how can I get the best out of our relationship? So if I see more color preference from someone, what can be done about it? So Insights provides this common language where instead of, oh, I don't like working with her, I can say, well, it's actually that person's yellow energy that might frustrate my red energy. So we begin to have a safer conversation about behavior and preference rather than a finger pointy conversation that might include some blame. So it provides a common language. It gives us that ability to recognize preference in self first and then in others. And all of that drives an increase in self-awareness. We can then learn to adapt if we lead, and I think all of us are leaders, whether we have a team or not. We can all learn to adapt our leadership style to improve our connections with everyone that we come into contact with. And do you know what? It's really fun. It's a really fun thing to do. It's a really nice, enjoyable step away from the treadmill. It's a nice investment of time in self and team and leaders. So I wanted to share with you super quickly, and if you do need to dive off, please do. I'm only going to go over by about a minute. But this is my team, a recent screen grab of my team. I've blocked out people's names for you. But when we are working with intact teams, we can plot on the wheel, and here it is on the screen, where everyone's will positions are to help us understand, well, what might be going on in this team? What might we need to pay attention to? So on the face of it, when you look at where all of my team are based, and here I am down here in will position 26, you can see what it looks like. We don't have much red energy because there's only one person who has red energy dominant in our team, which is what this graph is telling us. Only one person, 11% of my team, has red energy first. However, red energy is a key strength for my team. We're really good at getting stuff done. And that's shown by our preferred energies. So our preferred energy, I'll take you back to that iceberg model in the graphs, is everything above the line for us. And above the line equals accessible and are usually a strength for us, our noticeable behaviors by others. Passing ships can see that stuff that's above the surface. So actually for my team, if you look, and the little colored dots here, each of these lines represents one person. The slash represents the midpoint line in their graph, so what's above the surface and what's below. A lot of us have red energy above the line. The majority of us have red energy above the line. So it's not just that we have one person. And if we hadn't taken the time to look deeper, we may never have known that. Okay, so really worth taking a look at a team and the entire picture, rather than, as I said at the beginning, simply self-referring in one does not give us the answers. So the trick is to be a great chameleon. to be able to adapt to your surroundings, not in an inauthentic way, in a way that might be some small baby steps towards someone else's preferences to be able to improve a working relationship or a leadership relationship. So I wanted to give you some takeaways for yourselves. I would like you to be aware of this now. And just by attending this webinar, you've raised your level of consciousness in terms of observable behaviors in yourself and others. So look at that, notice, oh, hang on, am I just engaging my red energy there? Is that a surprise to me, or am I used to doing that? Consider your leadership style. We're all leaders. You know, when does it work more for you than it is for others? When might you need to change it and engage in a different style so that it works better for someone else, less self-centered, more person-centered? And consider the balance in your team. So have a little think about, oh, if I have a team, where might everyone else be? And what might that mean for our dynamics? What could you have an abundance of, or what might you be missing? And if you can begin to have some of those thoughts, you can probably also begin to make some leaps about, well, what might I be able to do about that? Of course, we want to be able to help you. We have got a webinar Festival of Work only offer. Where if you're interested in finding out where you sit on the model, the profiles themselves, I've mentioned it before, they're not cheap. They're over £100 each, but we'd love to do for you a profile and a feedback session. So either with myself or one of my senior partners, it's worth well over £600. If you were a client of ours, we'd be charging you full price. But we'd love to help you understand yourself in relation to your insights profile. So please do contact Claire afterwards, and you'll get an email from us anyway after the session straight away with the recording. So you can reply to that email that comes through if you haven't made a note of Claire's email. And it's worth mentioning, we have another webinar next Friday, more focused on motivation. So less focus on insights, more about workplace motivators, how they show up and how we can engage them. And another one the following Friday that my senior partners, Steve and Nicola, are going to be running for us. And that one is all about some of the tips and tricks that we throw into some of our leadership programs that aren't insights related. So if you're getting a sense of what it might be like to work with us, these webinars are going to really help you understand that. So that's all I have to say. I'm sorry I've gone over a little bit and some people have already dropped off, but it's been lovely to meet you virtually. It's been lovely to see some familiar faces. I'm recognizing people, but please do dial off if you need to. If you have a question, feel free to hang back and ask me.